What is up, y'all? John Green here with JG Fit, and in this video we're going to be covering one of my favorite topics when it comes to training programs, and that is tempo, right? So the tempo is referring to the exact timing of every single repetition in your program, right? So my favorite example to use for this is generally going to be a bicep curl, or we're going to use a chest press just because you can see the upper half of my body here, right? So tempo control, right? This has a 4-digit process when writing it down, right? So my favorite tempo, we're gonna put it down right here, is a 3, 1, 1, 2, right? Now, a lot of times I see this third one as an X. It just depends on what program you're using. If you're putting it in yourself by hand, or some programs need a number there, it just depends, right? But anyway, tempo control. This first number is referring to the eccentric phase, right? So here, this is the eccentric phase, okay? The eccentric phase is the lowering or the lengthening of a muscle, right? So I say lowering in the sense that if we're doing a barbell chest press or a dumbbell chest press, the eccentric phase is the lowering of the dumbbells or the barbell. Okay, now I use 3, okay? 3 seconds as a standard for me, because you should always be lowering your weight or extending the muscles, whatever it may be, over a longer period of time. It should never just be a drop, okay? Because we don't want to drop it and then just try to catch it and go. It has multiple terrible repercussions if you are, right? You see all the time people doing a bench press where they drop it and they just bounce it off their sternum, right? Here, this is their press. Number one, right? They're doing terrible amounts of damage to their sternum. They're hitting themselves with a barbell, or if dumbbells, they're taking it and they're bouncing it off their ligaments here at the bottom range as they go. It's not really beneficial. It has no good effect on the human body, and you're just doing more harm than good. All right. Now, you're also missing out on gains, okay? The eccentric phase does 3 times as much damage as the concentric phase, or the contraction, okay? That means when you're lowering this under control, right? I'm still flexing my pecs on the chest press. I'm using my pecs, but I'm lowering this weight. I'm lengthening my pectoral muscles, okay? And it's damaging them all the way. And we talk about damage, we mean microfiber tears. This is like how we build muscle, right? I don't mean like you're tearing your pecs, like you've seen in some YouTube videos that are horrendous, right? We're doing microfiber tears and we're building, right? So we can build back up to build bigger muscles. So the eccentric phase should always be under control, right? It can be a 2, it can be a 3, it just kind of depends for me on the length of the muscle or the range of motion involved, right? If you're doing a wrist curl, it might not be 3 seconds because we're doing something that has a very short range of motion. But on most things, we're gonna have a minimum 3-second hold on any one of my programs, okay? If you can't see it because of that light, this is a 3, okay? Now, the second number refers to the pause in the lengthened or lowered phase, okay? So I always implement a pause. Pause and lengthened state, okay? I always implement a pause. Again, we're gonna stick with this chest press example. When you come down, we should not immediately lift back up, right? We wanna make sure we have control of that range of motion. We're coming down, we're stopping completely, and then we're flexing up, right? This ensures that, for a chest press example, we're not bouncing off ligaments. We're not using secondary things to help lift the weight. We're sticking with the exercise we're doing and we're fucking grinding it out, right? We're coming here, we're pausing, and we're flexing to come up, right? The third number here is gonna be your concentric phase, okay? Now your concentric phase is referring to the shortening of the muscles, right? Or flexing in this point here. So let's say on a chest press, we're flexing it up, right? Now, I say this is almost always gonna be 1 second because most of the time we wanna contract with force, all right? There are a few occasions where we don't. If we're working with stability or we're trying to focus on more motor recruitment, neural recruitment, there are reasons why we wouldn't have this as a 1 second, or in sometimes you'll see an X, right? It just depends on who's writing it. If you see an X, it just means explode, literally, like you're trying to push as hard as you possibly can. So this 1 second or X is pretty standard, right? So again, we're lowering 1, 2, 3, right? Second number 1, we're pausing for a full second, and then we're gonna press it forward for 1 second while we're flexing. This here, this third number, is our flex, right? Again, it's a pause, but I don't like to think this is a pause. I like to think of this as a flex because it's immediately following your contraction, your concentric contraction phase. So for the chest press example, we're lowering 1, 2, 3, we're flexing it to come up, and then we're flexing 1, 2. I will almost always have this as a 2 because you should always flex on every rep. If you are not holding and flexing, you are missing out on gains, right? Control builds muscles, not heavy weights. Weight is relative, right? You can be like me where I look way stronger than I am because I control all these movement patterns, right? There are some dudes who bench press, 120-pound dumbbells, but I have a bigger chest and I only bench press 100-pound dumbbells for like 2 or 3 reps, right? It's all relative. But if you control this movement pattern, you will build more muscle. And who doesn't want to do that? It doesn't matter if you're doing a strength phase, if you're doing a weight loss program, or if you're doing a hypertrophy program. This is a general tempo that I will put on. Control your tempos, okay? It's important. You're missing out on building muscle if you aren't doing that, right? Now, there are times when you do want to change these numbers, right? For example, if you're just trying to do something where you're trying to do more muscle damage, like you hit a plateau, and you just really gotta do something drastic to break through that plateau. So for a perfect example of this is hamstring curls. A lot of guys feel like they get stagnant, from females too, but this is a big problem I have with my male clients. They'll tell me that they are stagnant on their hamstring curls. So they've been stuck at the same weight for 2 months, right? Everything else is going up. Their squats are going up, their leg extensions are going up, right? But their hamstring curls are staying the same. Your hamstrings, right, are a long muscle group. There's 3 muscles in there. And their main focus is keeping you upright. So they're used to being used all day. They don't contract fast like your quads, right? They're type 2 muscle fibers. And they're better at contracting slower. So I will sometimes take this first stage and we lengthen over like 5 to 6 seconds, right? Now, when we do that, we are doing much more muscle damage to those fibers, right? We're doing damage to the fibers in hopes that we are going to rebuild them bigger, stronger. So your goals or your nutritional habits have to support this, right? You cannot be doing 6-second negatives on things if you're eating at a major caloric deficit, right? Because you're not going to rebuild. You're just going to be super sore. So learn how to use this tempo, right? And changing tempo patterns to control movement patterns, to get stronger, to build larger muscles, whatever it may be. But you should always control your eccentric phase, this first number, right? The lengthening phase. There should always be a pause at the bottom of every rep, okay? Right? Now, mind you, this is the opposite if you're doing like a pull-up or a lat pull-down. But the lengthening, there should always be a pause in the lengthened state of a muscle. Now, our contraction. Unless we're doing something that is working stability, for example, or we're trying to strengthen a joint, whatever it may be, the contraction is almost always going to be a max effort contraction, right? Very rarely are you going to see something otherwise. So this is most likely going to be a 1 or X. Sometimes it's 0, but I find that misleading. Again, the X just means explode, contract with force, right? Whatever it may be, contract with force. Now, this last number is always referring to the flex state, as I call it, or this is whenever it's shortened, right? A press right here. So always hold this flex, squeeze this flex, get those gains. If you're not squeezing out every single rep, you're missing out on so much progress, it's not even funny. So again, tempo control. Learn to read it, learn how to use it, gains go through the roof.